Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. You have in front of you, those in the packet, the ordinance with the specifics of the proposed changes, and also an explanation of those proposed changes. I'm going to follow that explanation of proposed changes page, as it's a little bit easier to follow along with, I believe. I'll kind of start with just the reasons, kind of what the changes that we're making here. To start with, as you can see in section 9.2 are just definitions. A lot of that is just cleaning it up, adds a few definitions. I think those all fairly well speak for themselves. Next, we just had a realignment, reorganization of some of the code, moving sections here or there with little actual change.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask Ty, not everybody watching TV has a clue what you're talking about.
That's
I know
right.
we all do.
The viewers.
A short paragraph of what the intent of this ordinance is before you talk about changes to
Sure.
it, please.
I'll go ahead and start with what cross-connection is. I think that's probably the best place to start. It's any actual or potential connection or piping through which it's possible to introduce any contaminants or anything other than the potable water that is intended to flow through our potable water system. That can happen by a process known as backflow, which is where water or anything else that it carries could flow in the wrong direction, thus bringing any possible contaminants into the public water supply.
And the intent of this ordinance is to prevent that.
That's correct. And the changes that we're making are hoping to make that more effective. Really, I've been here for just over a year at this position, and I've learned a lot in the last year, and so that's why we're here to try and be as effective as possible with my time and with other staff involved.
I want to add one thing to that too, Ty, if I could, please. And the reason for these changes because of the Idaho rules for public drinking. But
That is a part of it, yeah. That was
State rule, right?
what kind of spurred this along, and we've, while we were here, there was a chance to make some other changes. Like I said, that would clean it up and reorganize it, make it more user friendly, and add some things that will increase the effectiveness of the code and of the cross connection control program. And the major ways that will be more effective is to increase communication between us, the water purveyor, the customers that it affects, and the backflow assembly testers who are, on the ground actually doing the testing and inspection of the backflow assemblies that do protect the drinking water supply.
okay,
Okay.
go ahead and continue then. Thank you.
Sure. So as I said, definitions, those are pretty well self-explanatory. A lot of the language included in the definitions and some other ways in our proposed changes were to align the language with the state code, just so that for consistency. The last thing, like I said, was to improve the communication between the parties involved. And the main changes here that I'll kind of highlight here in section 9.4, use of a backflow prevention assembly. Section 9-4G, we're adding the requirement to the code that all installed backflow assemblies be tagged, tested, and a tag attached indicating that it was a passing test. This was something that is supported by the State of Idaho Division of Building Safety by their plumbing program. 9-4, sorry, there is some more there as well. There's another part there that we, a little reorganization, and removed the section that regarding the rates established by the council. That is all established by the private contractors who do the testing. 9-4H, does address that new requirement that you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, regarding failed assemblies, that they must be repaired, replaced, or isolated from the public drinking water system within 10 business days of a failed test. Section 9-4I is, again, for communication. We don't know that it's failed until the backflow assembly tester lets us, as the water purveyor, know. And the same with the customer who is contracted them to do the testing. And so that change to the provision requires notification within 1 business day of a failed test for a backflow assembly. I'll go back and add, forgive me, in section 9.4G, we are asking that all assemblies be tagged every time that an assembly is tested. Again, for information to be out there for the customers, for us, and for other backflow assembly testers. There have been times this was requested by some of the customers who have had multiple testers come along and test the same assembly, often the next, or sometimes the next day, and they're receiving 2 bills for when it's not required, not necessary. If there are any questions from the council, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions for Ty?
Oh, I've learned a lot of this from Ty in recent months, so,
We've got a chat, haven't we?
yeah.
Walter? One point I would like to make for the public is that among the many other places, a lot of them commercial, that are required to have backflow prevention devices that are required to be tested, so do single-family residences, duplexes, private property that have underground irrigation systems. We would like to think that they all have backflow prevention devices on them because they were installed and checked by the city at the time they were constructed. And if they do, they're required to be checked annually. Ty's department, the city, can put you in touch with a list of people that are qualified to test them. What does it run about to have one tested? Anywhere $75 maybe?
Between $40 and $70, depending
Okay.
on
All right.
who you're.
But they need to do it, they need to be tested, they need to be approved, they need to be tagged that they have been tested, so that's one point of this. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the ordinance on the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
I'll second that.
Okay, Walter made a motion to approve the ordinance and to sustain the 3 readings, separate readings, or avoid the 3 separate readings, and Dan seconded that motion. Any conversation before we ask for a roll on this? Okay, Art, we'll start with you.
Aye.
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 Mike, as this ordinance passed. This is ordinance number 2014-303. And I will read that, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for the amendment of Moscow City Code Title 7, Chapter 9, providing for the updated and additional definitions, provided for bringing language in line with Idaho Administrative Procedures Act, providing for organizing Moscow City Code into clear and logical sections, providing for effective communication between a water purveyor, affected citizens, and backflow assembly testers in the city, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effective from the date of its passage, approval, and publication according to law, 3/3/2014. Thank you, Ty.